Let's all take ourselves back to grade school for a moment. It's the last day of school. You've probably been watching movies for the last week, but all you can think about is the forthcoming summer vacation. What will you do? Play video games, go to the pool, watch Jartoons videos, wink, or maybe you're like the crew in our next cartoon, and you're gonna make it the most epic summer possible. That's right, today we're covering Phineas and Ferb.
We're gonna do it all.
Mom!
An important factor about the creation of Phineas and Ferb is the formulaic approach to episode creation, undertaken by Povenmire and the writing team. Episode 1, and really all of Season 1, are essential in establishing this formula. However, before really diving into the first season, we should probably introduce the two geniuses that the show is named after. First of all, there's Phineas Flynn, an inventive, ambitious, and triangular boy looking to make the most of his summer vacation. Phineas operates as the voice of his dynamic duo with his stepbrother, Ferb Fletcher, the quiet, equally inventive man of action. Together, these two stepbrothers create numerous outlandish, fun, and in many cases, dangerous contraptions to make their summer the most epic it could possibly be. And since we're on introductions, another important member of the Flynn-Fletcher family is the eldest sibling, Candace. High-strung and anxious, Candace spends the majority of her time trying to bust her brothers for their wild and dangerous inventions.
What do you want me to see?
Hi, Mom.
Hi, boys!
On the few occasions that this isn't the case, she's probably on the phone with her best friend Stacy or oogling over her crush Jeremy. More on them later. And lastly, as far as the first few characters go, there is one final person to introduce: Isabella. Isabella is one of Phineas and Ferb's close friends, very often participating in the wild constructions. She leads a troupe of Fireside Girls, more on them later, and together they often play a major role in supporting the boys' big ideas. Oh, and don't tell anyone, but Isabella has a huge crush on Phineas. Make sure you keep that to yourself. Alright, that's enough technical talk. Let's jump into Phineas and Ferb's first ever contraption from Season 1, Episode 1, aptly named Roller Coaster. What a way to kick off summer, right? Candace isn't having any of it though, and with such massive constructs, how could Phineas and Ferb possibly clean up in time?
Hey, where's Perry?
Introducing the secondary plot of the show, Perry the Platypus, Phineas and Ferb's semi-aquatic pet. And if we know anything about platypuses, it's that they don't do much. However, Perry is a cut from a different cloth of egg-laying mammals, because he's actually a secret agent, in the guise of a mindless pet. Receiving missions through his direct superior, Major Monogram, Perry, otherwise known as Agent P, undergoes regular missions to thwart the evil plans of Heinz Doofenshmirtz. More on him later. This time around, Doofenshmirtz has covered the entirety of the eastern seaboard in tinfoil, through the use of his massive magnet and magnetism magnifier. Doofenshmirtz plans to pull the eastern seaboard west, which will, according to him, fully change the rotation of the Earth. Gotta give him props for ambition at the very least.
What are they doing right now? Why do you ask? What do you mean you could see it from your house? See what?
With their construction completed, Phineas, Ferb, and all in attendance set off for the maiden voyage of the coolest coaster ever. A massive structure that spans the entirety of the tri-state area. With all their friends in tow, Phineas and Ferb's roller coaster banks, spins, and soars across the whole city. The next few moments are where the two main plots collide. Doofenshmirtz's magnet begins pulling the tinfoil from the east, and in an obvious turn of events, the Earth's rotation doesn't change. Quick thinking, Agent P latches onto a nearby helicopter that lifts him, the magnet, and the magnetism magnifier away from Doofenshmirtz's lair. The dangling magnet then lifts the entirety of Phineas and Ferb's roller coaster, taking it away from view of their mom.
Okay, I give up. What am I supposed to be looking at?
The ride comes to a close in their backyard, and everything looks normal. Mom has no idea the boys just kicked off summer in the most epic way possible. Next up in Episode 2, Lawn Gnome Beach Party of Terror, we see one of the rare moments where Candace doesn't try to bust her brothers. Today, Phineas and Ferb decide to build a backyard beach, and Candace realizes that this could do big things for her popularity. And with her crush, Jeremy, on the way, Candace forgets all about calling her mom. Phineas and Ferb then go on to kick off an awesome beach party, with almost everyone from the neighborhood, topped off by the boys' second most popular ranked song, Backyard Beach.
A backyard beach, nothing's out of reach, we got the backyard beach.
When Candace is crowned Queen Wahine of the Beach, she is absolutely elated, made doubly better when she and Jeremy find an opportunity to slow dance.
Candace, honey, I'm coming home.
Wait, what?
I I'm right around the corner.
Wait a second. Where's Perry been this whole time? Well, while the boys were busy building their backyard beach, Perry snuck off to stop Doofenshmirtz's evil schemes. Today, Doofenshmirtz is dead set on repossessing all of the lawn gnomes in the tri-state area.
A platypus? Perry the platypus?
But why? Well, from time to time during the series, Doofenshmirtz offers a glimpse into his childhood so he can explain the motives behind his evil plans. For the lawn gnomes, Doofenshmirtz explains how when he was a boy, money was tight, and his father had to give up his beloved lawn gnome. However, someone still had to protect their garden, and Father Doofenshmirtz decided that it would be Heinz. I'm sorry, him in that little outfit is so funny. And so, he has vowed to repossess all the lawn gnomes in the tri-state area, just as his was taken from him. You know, Doofenshmirtz is a goofy guy, but I kinda get it. I mean, spending a large majority of your childhood as a literal garden gnome, that's gotta impact a guy. Just as Doofenshmirtz finishes his story, he accidentally releases Agent P. During their ensuing fight, the Destructinator sucks up the entirety of the backyard beach. Let's take a dive into episode 3, Flop Stars, to get a glimpse into those original songs that made Phineas and Ferb so popular. During breakfast one summer day, the boys' mom regales them with the how-tos of being a one-hit wonder. 1. Make a hit single that rises to the top of the charts. 2. Throw a diva tantrum. 3. The hit single becomes elevator music. And 4. Go on a reunion tour. This knowledge comes thanks to Linda's experience as Lindana, a one-hit wonder in her own right. Phineas is then struck with this big idea for the day. They're gonna be one-hit wonders too. Kind of ironic when you think about all the songs they've performed over the course of the show, actually. As the boys begin developing their new hit single, Candace makes her way to the Googleplex Mall with Stacy. Here, Candace plans on entering a singing contest to become the next Super American Pop Teen Idol star. The 100th entrant into the contest will get to perform with the newest, hottest popular band, PFT. Who's the 100th contestant, you ask? Candace. And who the heck is PFT? None other than Phineas and the Ferb Tones. That's right, after spending the majority of the morning writing, Phineas and Ferb have risen to the top with their hit single, Gitchy Gitchy Goo. And Candace is the lucky winner that gets to sing with them on stage.
Candace!
A little later on, Phineas and Ferb are sat down by some big-ticket music executives to discuss their future as the next big thing in entertainment. Phineas and Ferb, though, vowed to be strictly one-hit wonders. Phineas explodes with anger and storms out of the office, checking the diva tantrum box from the one-hit wonder to-do list. In the elevator, a calm instrumental of Gitchy Gitchy Goo plays, checking off the elevator music box on their to-do list. The boys have one last box to check to complete their one-hit wonder to-do list: a reunion performance. The band returns to the Googleplex Mall, where Candace wallows, believing that Phineas and Ferb have ruined her opportunity for stardom. However, when Jeremy urges Candace to sing despite what her brothers are doing, she happily joins PFT on stage and sings her heart out. Okay, let's take a look into episode 4, The Fast and the Phineas, to introduce the Fireside Girls. Today, Phineas and Ferb decide to enter into the Swamp Oil 500, a massive car race that made its way to town. Before they can do that, however, they need a race car, so they soup up their mom's car. Before heading to the track, Isabella promises Phineas a pit crew for the race, and at the track, she shows up with the Fireside Girls. Fireside Girl Troop 46231 is led by Isabella, and the girls are mostly seen in support roles to Phineas and Ferb's inventions. These girls are extremely smart and able to understand numerous complex concepts by flipping through their Fireside handbooks. Their help will prove invaluable as the series goes on, but for today, they're Phineas and Ferb's pit crew. The Doofenshmirtz Evil Incorporated blimp flies overhead, and inside, Doofenshmirtz has Agent P trapped. For his nefarious plan today, starting a monopoly. Through the use of his deflatinator, Doofenshmirtz will deflate everything that is, inflated. After this, if anyone ever wants anything inflated again, they will have to go through him. Let's hope he doesn't plan on inflating the prices too. Anyone?
Imagine the mayhem once my deflatinator ray is fully charged.
Anyway, the race is, underway, and the boys are absolutely destroying their competition, partially thanks to the Fireside Girls' amazing job in the pits, and partially thanks to Ferb's professional control over the remote-controlled race car.
Candace, you're on the big screen.
While things are going exceptionally well for Phineas and Ferb, things take a massive downturn for Doofenshmirtz. And by that, I mean the blimp is falling from the sky. The airship rams into the broadcasting tower that was airing the race on tri-state televisions, knocking it off the air. Candace, who has been trying to get her mom to see the race on TV, fails once more in busting her brothers. And Doofenshmirtz as well is foiled by the cunning Agent P. Next up is the episode Raging Bully. Here we meet more of Phineas and Ferb's iconic friends. The brash and brutal bully, Buford. He's actually a pretty nice guy. And the studious brainiac, Beljeet. During an interaction at the Googleplex Mall, Phineas accidentally drops ice cream on Buford's pants, humiliating him. Buford moves to fight Phineas, but is interrupted by World Heavyweight Boxing Champion Evander Holyfield? Yeah, that is in fact World Heavyweight Boxing Champion Evander Holyfield, voiced by him too. And he offers to help train Phineas for the upcoming fight. After a successful training montage, Buford and Phineas gear up and are set to begin their bout. Thankfully, this isn't a full-on boxing match. Instead, Phineas and Buford compete in thumb wrestling.
Candace, this is your thumb in front of the lens.
The two square off, and Buford dominates Phineas. And when all hope seems lost, a scoop of ice cream falls from the sky, landing on Phineas's head. Buford recoils and laughs. But now that Phineas has been humiliated, he calls off the fight and says the two are even. But wait, where did that ice cream come from? Of course, it came from Doofenshmirtz. You see, today is Heinz's birthday, so Doofenshmirtz regales Agent P with the traumatic stories of his past birthdays. On the day of Doofenshmirtz's birth, both of his parents failed to show up. Yikes. With a lack of parents and, well, friends, when Heinz turned 5, he was forced to throw his own surprise party with his very own Dunkelberry cake.
Hey kid, lock up when you're done, okay?
However, when the young Doofenshmirtz was forced to walk home alone with his cake, he was swarmed by Dunkelberry bats. Agent P catches up to Doofenshmirtz, who is flying above the boxing ring, and the two fight it out. Doofenshmirtz threatens to smudge Agent P's face with ice cream for the ultimate humiliation. However, at that moment, Agent P calls a massive whale that flies over, knocking the ice cream from Doofenshmirtz to Phineas down below. Agent P gains the upper hand, scaring Doofenshmirtz into the support beam of his flying machine, causing it to fall below. Once it lands, it falls on the cleanup party mess setting, and everyone in attendance clears the boxing ring from the parking lot before their mom can see. Speaking of ice cream, you scream is our next episode. In this episode, Phineas and Ferb seek out to make the most epic Sunday possible for Isabella, who just underwent a tonsillectomy. Things go a little awry when Ferb mixes up the blueprints with Doofenshmirtz's blueprints for a space lasinator.
Hey, how's it going?
Observant viewers may notice a little similarity between Doofenshmirtz and the boys. Both are very inventive and tend to spend their days creating crazy contraptions. In a similar vein, where Candace spends her time trying to bust her brothers to Linda, Vanessa, Doof's daughter, spends her time trying to bust her father for being an evil scientist.
Gonna be busted. I don't wanna put the hurt on you.
Anyway, the two parties complete their respective constructions, unwittingly creating the wrong invention. Vanessa, under the impression that her father is building a space laser to destroy all that annoys him, calls her mother Charlene to prove that Doofenshmirtz is truly evil. Meanwhile, Candace, in her never-ending quest to bust her brothers, calls her mom to snitch about the boy's invention. However, the evil Heinz Doofenshmirtz has created nothing more than an ice cream maker. Not exactly the most nefarious of creations I can think of. Phineas and Ferb, on the other hand, have built a rocket-propelled space laser that takes off into the atmosphere. Luckily though, the boys didn't actually attach the laser itself. Thanks to the blueprint mix-up, the boys' antics have once again disappeared before their mom can see it. As far as Vanessa's effort to prove her father is evil, an ice cream machine doesn't rank very highly on the evil scale.
Hey, how's it going?
Hey Ferb, snap out of it!
In the episode titled, "Get That Bigfoot Out of My Face," the boys and their family take a little trip away from their usual summer mayhem. With Baljeet, Buford, Isabella, and the Fireside Girls in tow, the Flynn Fletcher family are set to spend the weekend at their grandparents' cabin on the lake. Here, they will simply enjoy the outdoors with Linda's parents, Betty Jo and Clyde Flynn. Betty Jo urges Candace to have fun, and together they come up with a plan for something Candace might enjoy. Perry also rides along with everyone to camp. Evil never rests, however, and soon after arriving, Perry slips away to see Major Monogram. We get a rare insight into the Major's past at the Academy.
But I don't want to go to the Academy, Daddy.
I'm not your father.
Upon Agent P's arrival, Doofenshmirtz isn't actually up to anything. It's his week off. Instead, he's having a date with someone he met online. This episode serves as the perfect example to the relationship between Doofenshmirtz and Agent P. The two don't hate each other. Instead, the whole nemesis thing is like a job for them. In a lot of ways, the two are basically coworkers and are actually friends. Meanwhile, the kids are gathered around a campfire, telling spooky stories. Phineas puts on a performance about the fabled Bigfoot, and with Ferb's help, scares everyone out of their boots. Hey, I said they weren't building any complex contraptions, but this Phineas and Ferb we're talking about, they're gonna put something together.
It's an inflatable Ferb. Sounds like Ferb, too.
Candace and Betty Jo then put on an even bigger prank, where Candace gets eaten by a bigger monster from the woods. Just typical campfire shenanigans from the Flynn-Fletcher family. In the next episode, It's a Mud World, we get a look into the Fletcher half of the Flynn-Fletcher family. Specifically, Lawrence Fletcher, Ferb's dad and Phineas's stepdad. Lawrence is originally from London and moved to the States at some point before the 90s. Eventually, he met and fell in love with Linda Flynn, bringing together the Flynn-Fletcher family. Candace has been having a rough time with the parallel parking portion of her driving lessons, something she feels will prevent her from getting her learner's permit altogether. In short, Candace feels defeated and unconfident in her driving abilities. And what's the best way to gain some confidence behind the wheel? To get behind the wheel of a monster truck, of course. As a way to help Candace, Phineas and Ferb soup up their mom's car again, this time turning it into a sick monster truck and building a track to go along with it. In an interesting turn of events, the boys pull up to their dad's window, meaning this is the first time that Phineas and Ferb's contraptions are in fact noticed by one of their parents.
Are you aware the boys have a monster truck in the backyard?
Honestly, you're as bad as Candace.
As it turns out, the new track that the boys made is a huge success,
Wednesday! Giant monster truck rally right here in Danville!
attracting a local monster truck driver to compete on the course. One of these drivers, Buck Buckerson, berates Candace, sending her into an anger-induced driving frenzy, wowing the crowd. And Buck Buckerson. The competition is completed with the final test, parallel parking. With her newfound confidence, Candace aces the final test, leaving Buck Buckerson in her dust. Mud.
Candace, why on earth are you all covered in mud?
Episode 21, It's About Time, sees the boys undergo one of their most wild adventures, time travel. The Flynn-Fletcher family begin the episode inside the Museum of Natural History. Here, the boys discover an old time machine prototype.
Stabilizers. Testing.
Did you hear something?
After tinkering around for a little bit, the boys and Candace travel back in time.
You guys are so...
However, now there's one glaring issue. Yeah, they're trapped in 300 million BC. While Phineas and Ferb work on a plan to get back, they see what Perry and Doofenshmirtz are up to. Doofenshmirtz seems to have found himself a new nemesis, a secret agent panda named Peter. Wait a second, another animal secret agent? Well, an important thing to take away here is that this is the first episode that introduces us to the fact that there are, in fact, other animal secret agents. Furthermore, all the animal agents work for the O.W.C.A, or the Organization Without a Cool Acronym.
Don't worry, he's stopping me. He's got it well in hand. Goodbye.
Don't worry though, by the end, Agent P and Doofenshmirtz find themselves back with their usual friendly rivalry, exactly as it was meant to be. Candace and the boys, meanwhile, are running for their lives, trying to escape the monstrous T-Rex and other dinosaurs. In a stroke of genius, Phineas gets a stick and etches a message in the mud, which thereby changes the footprint that's in the museum to have their message for help. Isabella and the Fireside Girls get their message. And like I mentioned before, the Fireside Girls are extremely resourceful and are able to create their own time machine from scratch. Man, I gotta get one of those Fireside Girl manuals. After finishing their construction, the Fireside Girls arrive back in time, just in time to save Candace and the boys from the massive T-Rex. In the episode Traffic Cam Caper, we get a further glimpse into the O.W.C.A. One of the most important factors in keeping the O.W.C.A. running is that the animal agents must maintain their covers as household pets, else their entire organization crumbles. Following a day where the boys presumably went to the moon, the Flynn-Fletchers are gathered around around the dinner table discussing their days. Lawrence mentions a traffic camera that led him to receiving a citation. Candace overhears and realizes this camera may be the key to busting her brothers. Around the same time, Perry is called to his secret base by Major Monogram due to a serious security breach. The breach being this same traffic camera. Not only has the camera picked up everything Phineas and Ferb get up to, but also everything Agent P does. So, in an odd turn of events, Agent P is actually working against Candace in this episode as he tries to keep the disc out of her hands.
All right, Candace, what's going on in there?
Mom, I finally got the evidence that will prove
Oh, not this again.
He does this by calling on his nemesis Doofenshmirtz for aid. Heinz has his very own massive robot butler named Norm, and Agent P uses Norm to escape Candace and the boys with the tape. Running all across the tri-state area, everything comes to its conclusion along a lifting bridge where Candace is forced to choose between her evidence and Phineas. Candace, of course, chooses the life of her brother, and Agent P escapes with the disc back to the O.W.C.A. In a massive boardroom, various animal agents, Major Monogram and Carl the intern, wait anxiously for Agent P's arrival. Agent P walks in, slides the disc over, allowing Monogram and Carl to commence the disposal process.
Agency, don't do that. And the new guy goes,
I'm Norm.
This next episode, titled Put That Putter Away, sees Stacy take over for a sick Candace. Phineas and Ferb, as well as their closest friends, had originally sought to spend their day at Little Duffers, a local mini-golf course. However, it looks like Little Duffers is on its way out, as nobody wants to play at the old rundown course. So naturally, Phineas and Ferb create their own mini-golf course. With Candace out with a cold, the busting all comes down to Stacy.
Find out what they're up to and report back to me.
No problemo.
A task she finds difficult, given the irresistibly cool nature of Phineas and Ferb's creation. While the boys enjoy their mini-golf day, a very exhausted Perry sneaks off to meet with Major Monogram. Unfortunately, Agent P's request for a little vacation time was denied. However, it looks like today will be an easy one, because just as Agent P arrives at Doofenshmirtz's house in the suburbs, he finds out that Doofenshmirtz is, in fact, taking the day off. And so, Agent P joins him in a nice relaxing day by the pool. Things are anything but relaxing for poor Candace though, as Stacy has fallen too deep into the coolness of Phineas and Ferb's mini golf course, even joining them in their music montage. So Candace decides to take things into her own hands.
Okay, Candace. Looks like it's up to you.
Slowly. Unfortunately for Candace, Doofenshmirtz has his atomic leaf blower-inator. With this, Doofenshmirtz plans to get back at his irritating neighbor by blowing all the leaves back onto his lawn. Yeah, that'll show him, Dr. D. Of course, things go awry, and Doofenshmirtz ends up blowing the windmill at the top of the golf course so hard that it flies away. Right back to Little Duffers. What a nice way to help a small business.
Sorry I forgot to bust your brothers.
It's okay.
In this episode titled Phineas and Ferb Get Busted, you guessed it, Phineas and Ferb are actually busted. Sort of. The episode opens with Phineas and Ferb on top of a massive towering structure, building a flying car out of their mom's car. Candace ushers their mom to the backyard where she actually sees it. The coolness factor of a flying car holds nothing on Linda's anger.
Hey, look, Ferb. Here's bolt number 473.
Everything comes to a head when the tower that the car was on falls directly on the house and the boys are sent to reformatory school.
This is the happiest moment of my life. Woohoo!
Phineas and Ferb approach the Smile Away Reformatory School, which is more like a boot camp. And instead of cultivating responsibility and discipline in a happy environment, the Smile Away Reformatory is dedicated to suppressing creativity and breaking spirits. Harsh. Back at the Flynn Fletcher family home, Candace comes to realize that despite Phineas and Ferb's antics, they're still her little brothers, and she loves them.
Little brothers.
Candace and Jeremy then take off with the flying car of the future today, that Phineas and Ferb built that morning. That night, Candace and Jeremy finally arrive at the school. To get in, they disguise themselves as Morty Williams, a reporter that is doing a segment on Smile Away. Candace and Jeremy trick the warden into locking himself in the janitor's closet so they can grab the boys and make a run for it. Everything comes to a head at the cliff where the flying car of the future today is perched and in disrepair. Candace then breaks down in tears, proclaiming that she has always been proud to be their sister and feels guilty that she's the reason the boys lost their magic touch. This outpouring of emotions proves to be the key to reawakening Phineas and Ferb, and the two seem like their old selves again. Unfortunately, though, the warden is right on their tail and has them cornered. Just when all hope seems lost, from the ground emerges a massive robotic spider with Agent P and Doofenshmirtz. Wait, is Perry's cover blown? Well, not exactly, because from here forward, things get very absurd. Turns out, everything was all one bad dream. Phineas and Ferb never got busted to begin with.
Agent P, your cover's been blown. We're going to have to relocate.
The season finale, Unfair Science Fair, proved such an astronomically wild event for Phineas and Ferb, it had to be cut into 2 different stories. The first story starts off as any other classic Phineas and Ferb summer day. The boys contemplate what they want to do. Isabella comes to the backyard, but instead of her usual, "What you doing?" she instead urges Phineas to check in on Baljeet, who's in the middle of a crisis. The crisis in question, a potential A-. Yikes. This is really serious. But to help Baljeet avoid the shame of being less than perfect in his education, Phineas and Ferb agree to help him build a portal to Mars for the science fair.
Where's Terry? Where's Terry?
Meanwhile, Agent P catches up to Doofenshmirtz, who's on his way to that same science fair. For his nefarious deed today, Doofenshmirtz plans to win a science fair? Well, it might not be world domination, but one win at a time, right? Doofenshmirtz goes on to explain the story of his very first Anator. However, despite the fact that Mini Doofenshmirtz was able to build an impressive machine, he lost to a baking soda volcano. The following year, Doofenshmirtz's even bigger Anator lost again to a baking soda volcano. Doofenshmirtz's losses to baking soda volcanoes runs so deep, he even lost in a poetry competition to one. And so, with his troubled past with baking soda volcanoes, Doofenshmirtz has vowed he will finally win something through the use of his very own massive baking soda volcano. Baljeet gives a demonstration of the portal, wowing his teacher, Mrs. McGillicuddy. So much, he gives Baljeet the sacred A+. Around this time, Doofenshmirtz inadvertently unplugged the portal, stopping it from working. McGillicuddy tries everything to turn it back on to no avail. He finally discovers he needs to plug it in and finds a high-voltage socket. With a high-voltage socket in the portal on high power, it sends out a beam that sucks Doofenshmirtz in the portal itself to Mars. Surely, though, the boys stepped through the portal before it disappeared, right? They did. And for that, we need to jump to the next episode. The final episode of Season 1, Unfair Science Fair Redux, tells another story of the previous episode. It all starts with a particularly lonely day for Candace. Jeremy won't answer her calls. Neither will Stacy. In fact, nobody answers her calls. Candace immediately assumes the worst, that everybody's probably avoiding her.
Let's see. Candace, you loser. Bad friendships fail. Stacy.
This drives her to seek out some faraway place where she could start over completely. Unbeknownst to Candace, she just stepped onto Mars. The portal then malfunctions, stranding Candace on another planet. However, all's not lost, as she finds one of the Mars rovers patrolling around. Unfortunately, though, the rover shuts down. In a fit of rage, Candace stomps out the machine, attracting the attention of a nearby little green creature. Martians! When Candace destroys the rover, the Martians are so impressed they immediately ascend her to Queen. Around this same time, Phineas and Ferb found a way to fix the portal and stepped through to save her. However, with her new status as Queen and her little green subjects that worship her, Candace is apprehensive to return home. It's not long before Candace begins to feel suffocated by the Martians and wants some alone time. Candace then connects the dots that her friends back home don't hate her. Instead, they probably just needed some time to do things by themselves for a bit. After this realization, and desperately wanting some time to herself, Candace agrees to return home. But the Martians aren't having it, and give chase after morphing into one giant green creature. Baljeet opens the portal in just the nick of time, allowing Candace and the boys back home safe and sound. So that about does it for the very first season of Phineas and Ferb, and obviously there were quite a few contraptions we didn't touch on. Here's a couple that we feel deserve to be mentioned. In episode 8, Phineas and Ferb feel overwhelmed by all their big ideas, and to help them, the boys create the Brobots. In episode 11, Phineas and Ferb are inspired by their dad's old snow cone machine to create a conjoining of summer and winter, Swinter. Episode 20 saw Phineas and Ferb create a submarine that shrinks to subatomic levels to receive Isabella's sash from inside her dog's stomach. That one's pretty gross. In episode 31, the boys relived the story of the Black Knight and his hounds of Heck by putting on a medieval jousting tournament. Candace and Perry switch bodies after the boys create a short-range teleporter in episode 37.
There's a teenage girl in here.
A teenage girl?
Agent P.
And finally, in episode 44, Phineas and Ferb build 2 working rockets to go and visit the stars. To kick off season 2, we have the Lake Nose Monster. The Flynn Fletcher gang open the episode on their way to Lake Nose, discussing the potential fun and the potential dangers that could be looming in the lake. As Lawrence begins to tell a long story, Phineas and Ferb escape into their invention for the day, in underwater search headquarters. Agent P finds himself deep underwater in Lake Nose as well.
This is really good, man. You want some? Here, take the blue cheese.
Doofenshmirtz has noted the abnormally high levels of zinc in the lake, and plans on extracting as much of it as possible from the water for reasons yet to be determined. Phineas and Ferb continue their search by following a literal red herring that leads them to Nosy. The creature emerges from the water and destroys the cameras on the base. Nosy isn't out to hurt anyone. He just wants to stay out of the public eye. To prove his loyalty to Nosy, Phineas destroys his camera. With this show of respect and a few corn dogs, Nosy and the boys become the best of friends and spend some time doing various activities. Unfortunately, things come to a heartbreaking halt after Nosy sees that Phineas and Ferb still have a video phone set up in the base. Nosy thinks that the boys are still trying to get his picture and runs off. Phineas and Ferb suit up and go to find Nosy in the water themselves. And that they do, only he seems exhausted. One thing about Nosy is that his survival in Lake Nose relies heavily on the high levels of zinc in the water. With Doofenshmirtz gliding around sucking up all the zinc, Nosy's health is slowly diminishing. Phineas gives Nosy a dollop of zinc-infused sunblock, and the Lake Nose monster is fully restored. Nosy knocks into Doofenshmirtz's machine, and directly into Phineas and Ferb's underwater base, erasing any evidence of their time down there, and more importantly, any evidence of Nosy's existence.
Oh, great. Look who finally showed up.
Before diving into episode 3, Tip of the Day, I'd like to pose a question to you, the viewer. What is the tip of the shoelace called? An aglet, of course, something that many people didn't know before this episode. But what almost seems to be common knowledge thanks to this episode, Phineas and Ferb find themselves intrigued how something so common, something that is seen pretty much every day, isn't well known. So, wanting to give the aglet the attention it deserves, the boys dedicate the day to aglet awareness, creating ribbons and even planning a worldwide broadcasted concert dedicated to the shoelace tip. At the aglet concert, Phineas, Ferb, and the gang have made worldwide waves about the tip of the shoelace. It's in the next few moments that Doofenshmirtz gears up to erase an embarrassing video from everyone's memory. Through the use of his Read My Mindinator and a universal delete remote. However, when he trips over his shoelace, his thoughts switch over to the aglet, and he inadvertently erases the aglet phenomenon from everyone's mind. But he didn't erase it from ours, that's for sure.
And I won't be needing this anymore. I'm free!
In the next episode, Elementary, my dear Stacy, the Flynn Fletcher family make a trip across the pond to visit Lawrence's half of the family. Reginald and Winifred Fletcher are the parents to Lawrence and grandparents to Phineas and Ferb. To open the episode, Candace and Stacy find themselves bored to death. That is, until they read through the entire catalog of Sherlock Holmes novels.
Girls, are you ready?
Wait, almost finished.
Everyone's off for the London Eye, when Perry sneaks off to meet with Major Monogram. Only this time around, Agent P has some company on his mission. Being in England, Major Monogram and the O.W.C.A. are outside of their usual jurisdiction, so the British Spy Union sends Agent O.O.
Double O-O? Isn't that just triple O?
No, that's not how.
Along with Agent P. Together, the two of them rush to Doofenshmirtz's lair to stop him from executing one of his more ambitious plans, relocating Big Ben to the tri-state area. Candace and Stacy as well begin some agent-like investigative work of their own, as they try to discover what sort of elaborate scheme Phineas and Ferb are up to today. The pair don their Holmes hats and conduct interviews, stakeouts, and gather clues. Essentially, Candace and Stacy use all their deductive reasoning to figure out what's going on, and when they do, the pair realize that Phineas and Ferb are up to something at Big Ben. They're building the Big Ben water slide. Of course, all that's left is for Candace to bust her brothers, and she's become a real-life Sherlock. However, Doofenshmirtz has other plans, and begins the launch sequence of Big Ben with the slide still attached. As it raises into the air, the supports begin to crumble, causing the slide to fall apart. And of course, Agent P arrives in just the nick of time to completely foil Doofenshmirtz's plans, and Big Ben returns back to its rightful position.
Well, I was expecting a bigger splash.
Although with one less water slide. For the next episode, we have Platypus. This time around, Phineas and Ferb decide to open up the trendiest new restaurant in town. Perhaps this is the perfect opportunity for Candace and Jeremy to finally get together. Doubly so, since rumor has it that Jeremy plans on asking her on a date.
Jeremy is gonna call you and ask you out for a very special evening tonight!
Speaking of dates, Doofenshmirtz hasn't had the best of luck in terms of love lately. So bad, in fact, that he has vowed that if his date goes poorly tonight, he will destroy the entire concept of love. And he means that literally. Through the use of his D-Loveinator satellite, Doofenshmirtz can eliminate the feeling of love in the entire tri-state area. Well, let's hope things go well, because it's date night in the tri-state area, it seems. I mean, just look at that line for Chez Platypus. Unfortunately for Candace, Dorman Buford takes his job very seriously, not allowing anyone in without a reservation. Or a few bucks bribe, like Doofenshmirtz. Can't knock the hustle, I guess. Well, it looks like Candace and Jeremy are waiting it out, but how are things going for Doofenshmirtz? Oof. Love is on a slippery slope right now. But by the end of the date, in a peculiar turn of events, Heinz's date is a huge proponent of evil, and the two hit it off incredibly well.
We got a love strong enough to rule the whole wide world.
Meaning that Doofenshmirtz has no need for his D-Loveinator. As far as Candace's date goes, they never get an opportunity to dine at Chez Platypus.
Platypus-themed restaurants are so 4 hours ago. Let's bail.
Since Phineas gives the building away. But all's not lost. Since the tables and the staff are still present, Candace and Jeremy have a lovely dinner beneath the stars.
Oh, Heinz. I feel nothing.
Episode 10 is, well, it's a goofy one. I think we'll leave it there. That clip just about sums it up perfectly. The next episode, The Chronicles of Meep, is perhaps one of the most iconic episodes. What's so iconic about it? Well, firstly, the creepy balloony. Secondly, a character by the simple name of onomatopoeia, Meep. We're first introduced to Meep when Phineas and Ferb inadvertently shoot a spaceship out of the atmosphere with a remote-controlled baseball, causing the little creature to fall to Earth.
Huh? Oh, that is the most adorable thing I've ever seen in my life!
They quickly begin working on repairs to the ship. While all this is going on, Perry slips away to thwart Doofenshmirtz's latest scheme. This time around, Doof has purchased an insane amount of carpet, so much that it covers the entirety of Doofenshmirtz Evil Incorporated. Doofenshmirtz goes on to explain another of his tragic backstories, and bear with me on this one, it's, interesting. In some weird, unexplained way, Doofenshmirtz was disowned and raised by ocelots, leading him to reek of pork, somehow. The stench was so awful, nobody would come near him, forcing him to get a job at a local carnival's dunk booth. But not as the person being dunked, no, he was the ball that people would throw. I swear, I am not making this up. These events would lead the young Heinz to buy a balloon and spray paint a face on it. This balloon with a face on it, Balloony, would go on to become young Doofenshmirtz's bestest friend. Unfortunately, during one fateful evening where Heinz was working as the family lawn gnome, Balloony floated away, never to be seen again. What does any of this have to do with carpets? Well, carpets create static electricity, which balloons are attracted to. Through the use of Doofenshmirtz's static electro-amplifinator, he will find Balloony once again after all these years. Doofenshmirtz dresses up in a sock suit, powering up his static electro thingy, and begins attracting all of the balloons in the tri-state area. Meanwhile, Phineas, Ferb, Isabella are captured by the alien from the picture who turns out to be an intergalactic criminal named Mitch.
Really? He seems like such a nice guy.
He is. I'm not.
To rescue the kids, Candace and Meep ET their way into the sky using Candace's bike and the remote-controlled baseballs from before. On board, Meep and Mitch are set to fight, when Doofenshmirtz crashes through the floor. And in an unexpected turn of events, Balloony is on board. However, he refuses to leave with Doofenshmirtz, and Agent P returns to the fray, taking Doofenshmirtz out of the ship.
My real best friend is Perry the Black.
Meep and Mitch then begin their fight in earnest. Meep gains the upper hand and subdues Mitch.
Children, thank you for your help in bringing down this villainous scoundrel,
allowing Candace and the kids to escape the prison ship safely. The next episode, the Baljeetals, is a rare Baljeet-focused episode. It all begins with Baljeet belting out guttural wails about his inability to rock.
That was me. I call it the fail whale.
Over the summer, Baljeet has been attending a rock and roll camp and has had difficulty finding his inner rock star. Phineas and Ferb decide to jump in and help Baljeet learn how to rock out. Phineas and Ferb try to explain what it means to rock, but Baljeet has a hard time wrapping his head around anything beyond getting a good grade from the summer camp. While the boys do what they can to help Baljeet, Candace and Stacy head to the Summer Rocks concert, a showcase of bands from the camp that Baljeet is attending. As of late, Stacy has been feeling like a third wheel between Candace and Jeremy. However, this feeling is short-lived because just as soon as they arrive at the concert, Stacy and Coltrane, a friend of Jeremy's, immediately hit it off. Now comes the time for the concert, and Phineas and Ferb have tried their best to turn Baljeet into an iconic rock star, even naming their band the Baljeetles. However, Baljeet still can't get the need for a good grade off of his mind. Backstage, however, Coltrane lets Baljeet know that there are no grades at the Summer Rocks camp. This realization sends Baljeet into a fit of rage, one that can only be expressed through headbanging rock music. The Baljeetles perform their hit song, Gimme a Grade, and blow the roof off the place. Looks like Baljeet had a rocker somewhere in him after all. The episode titled Phineas and Ferb's Quantum Boogaloo involves Phineas and Ferb fiddling with the space-time continuum. Now, I know what you're thinking. Jartoon, didn't Phineas and Ferb already do the whole time travel thing? Yeah, they did, but they went backward in time. This time, they're going to the future, specifically looking for a tool to help with a different contraption. In the future, they find their sister Candace aged 20 years forward. In adult Candace's backyard, they run into her children who give them the tool they need. The boys head back to their time, but not before being noticed by adult Candace. Always seeking to bust her brothers, even in her later years, Candace decides to take a time machine back to the beginning. The day the boys built a roller coaster. Here, Candace is finally able to show her mom what the boys were up to, officially busting her brothers. In doing so, she changes the entire timeline from there forward. When adult Candace returns to the future, instead of a bright utopia, she's greeted by a bleak dystopia. Because she inadvertently disrupted the past in a way that saw Agent P injured, Doofenshmirtz was able to rise to the top and is now Emperor of Danville. This naturally comes with a load of evil, but also some Doofenshmirtz goofiness. For example, it is law for everyone to wear a lab coat, and everyone's name is now Joe. Adult Candace then decides she must head back in time again to stop herself from busting her brothers, and she does just that. In doing so, everything shifts back to the way it was originally meant to be. Takeaway from this episode: do not mess with the space-time continuum.
Aunt Isabella, that means I'm gonna marry Phineas.
Or Ferb.
Phineas and Ferb Christmas Vacation is an episode that takes us away from the boys' summer antics. Instead, we get to see what they do during their other holiday break. Kicked off by a special Christmas-themed title sequence, the show opens with Phineas and Ferb wanting to show their appreciation for Santa Claus. To do this, they start by making a rest stop with all the amenities one could imagine, like a sauna and a rest station for the reindeer. And of course, evil doesn't take a holiday. So back at Doofenshmirtz Evil Incorporated, Heinz explains his nefarious deed. Doofenshmirtz plans on using his Naughtyinator to fire off a serum that will make everyone in the tri-state area naughty, meaning no Santa and no Christmas. That is evil. There's only one problem. Doof doesn't actually hate Christmas.
All I really want for Christmas is the ability to hate Christmas.
Phineas and Ferb continue with their plan to show appreciation to Santa Claus. For this plan, they decide to turn Danville into one giant thank you letter with Christmas lights in something they call Operation Bright Lights Big Belly. And with everyone's help, the entire city becomes Christmasified. A truly jolly Danville. Meanwhile, carolers arrive at the door of Doofenshmirtz Evil Incorporated and demand figgy pudding.
Go until we get some, we won't go until we get some, so bring some right here.
This aggravates Doofenshmirtz enough to the point he sets off the Naughtyinator, and the machine seems to have worked flawlessly, because we then shift over to the North Pole, where a massive list of last-minute naughties comes in, all from Danville. Phineas and Ferb then take it upon themselves to save Christmas for Danville because they are confident in the fact that the city is in fact nice. They amplify the signal of the W.C.A broadcasting station to send a message to the North Pole. Moments later, two elves arrive on the scene. They deduce that something fishy's going on for an entire city to deem naughty all at once. Then, in a climactic ending, Phineas and Ferb and the gang construct their very own flying sled and fly over the town to play the role of Santa for Danville. The elves, with their toy-building prowess, create the gifts, while everyone else plays different roles in making sure the presents reach the correct destinations. By the end of Christmas Eve, all of Danville had their nice status restored, and the boys successfully saved Christmas. They did such a good job, in fact, they got a personal thank you from Saint Nick himself. The episode titled Summer Belongs to You is Phineas and Ferb's first ever hour-long special. And in a coincidental turn of events, the goal for the boys today is to make this day the longest day of summer ever. With the summer solstice in effect, Phineas and Ferb are inspired to create the Sunbeater 3000, a rocket-powered jet plane that can travel the same speed as the Earth's rotation. This means that if they take off right when the sun rises, they will stay beneath daylight for a full 24 hours. Buford, ever the pessimist, refuses to believe this task is possible and is willing to bet on it. Should Phineas prove correct, Buford will have to return all the bikes he's stolen in his tenure as a bully. However, should Phineas fail, he will have to announce that summer is not for you, that he does have to abide by the laws of physics, and that he can't do whatever he puts his mind to. Harsh. And beyond that, should Phineas fail, he will have to spend the rest of the summer doing absolutely nothing. Double harsh! As this big reveal is going down, Candace is inside the house with Stacy. Candace expresses her concern over Jeremy being in Paris, the city of love, and she's not there.
Do you know what they have in France?
The pyramids?
No, French girls.
When she heads outside and sees the boys plotting out their course, she sees that they will be stopping in Paris, so instead of trying to bust her brothers, she joins them. It's time for takeoff, and everything goes mostly according to plan for their first stop in Tokyo. At the same time, Doofenshmirtz and his daughter Vanessa are atop the Tokyo Tower as part of their vacation. Doofenshmirtz, however, has other plans. Vanessa feels betrayed that her dad would bring work with him on their vacation, and in a freak accident, Vanessa falls from the Tokyo Tower. Thankfully, the Sunbeater 3000 flies below in just the nick of time to catch her.
Wait, you saved her and now you're running off with her like, oh!
The next stop is Paris, but Phineas and Ferb didn't account for an extra person in the ship, causing it to crash in the Himalayas. Luckily for everyone on board, Baljeet's Uncle Sabu lives in these mountains and owns a rubber band factory. Phineas has the great idea of rigging a massive rubber band ball underneath the ship to keep them in the air, and the adventure is back on course. Soon enough, the ship arrives in Paris, but crashes into the canals. Everyone splits up to get the tools they need for repairs, and Candace heads off to seek out Jeremy.
Isabella, you want to come with me?
Yes. Yeah, sure. Whatever.
Meanwhile, Isabella tries her best to get Phineas to notice her as more than just a friend. However, Phineas is so focused on repairing the ship that he practically disregards all of Isabella's subtle advances. At the top of the Eiffel Tower, Vanessa talks to Ferb about how she feels betrayed by her father. Ferb offers some meaningful advice and leaves to get her a flower to cheer her up. However, before he can return, Doofenshmirtz arrives on Agent P's hovercraft, and Vanessa climbs on board to head home. Everyone reconvenes at the canals with all the necessary parts to turn the Sunbeater into a high-powered water jet. Before takeoff, Jeremy overhears Candace and the two talk out their feelings, ending in Candace and Jeremy finally becoming an official couple. Hey, it's the city of love. Not everyone can strike out. Good for them, but it's time to head back home.
Don't worry, Candace. The week will be over before you know it. At least you've got a love scene on a bridge.
And the ship takes off at amazing speed. The journey goes exceptionally well for a little bit, but the ship breaks down on a deserted island. Here, Phineas panics at the prospect that he really can't do anything he puts his mind to. No matter how many ideas he has for getting off the island, he's shut down. But then, he remembers the massive map that Ferb had packed up. Using this map as a paper airplane and the final rubber band, the gang slingshots off the island and back to Danville. There's one final obstacle: road construction. Being so close to the finish line, Buford's found a change of heart and gives everyone their bikes back. Together, they use a piece of scrap metal as a ramp and fly over the construction into the backyard right when the sun sets, meaning Phineas and Ferb successfully circumnavigated the globe in one day. Before moving forward to Season 3, once again, let's shed some light on a few of the other contraptions from the season. In Episode 11, Phineas and Ferb went beyond VR by creating a device that literally transports you into a video game. The hottest new game show on television was created by the boys in Episode 15. The gang traveled to the bottom of the ocean in Episode 36 to discover the lost city of Atlantis, winning a sandcastle building contest in the process. The boys inadvertently become Danville's coolest superhero, the Beak, in Episode 50. In Episode 61, Phineas and Ferb build a molecular separator and accidentally split Candace in two separate entities based on her personalities. Season 3 kicks off with The Great Indoors. It's a rainy day in Danville, and the Fireside Girls were hoping to receive their desert trekking patches, so the boys decide to make a massive biosphere. Inside of this massive sphere, hexagonal panels move and shift to simulate any environment desired. After successfully trekking through a desert bio in the dome,
now don't make it too easy.
The scene shifts to a jungle environment, allowing the girls to achieve even more obscure biome-based patches. The last biome to emerge is a snowy mountain, and the Fireside Girls earn themselves a few more patches before leaving the biodome. Man, what a way to kick off the season. I wonder what other intriguing ideas Phineas and Ferb will have in Season 3. Next is Phineas' Birthday Cliporama. As the title suggests, it's Phineas's birthday, and to celebrate, the gang has put together a montage of all of his greatest moments. Nostalgia levels are high, as everyone shows their awe of all Phineas and Ferb's inventions, but beyond that, they show tons of love to Phineas himself.
We'll be together forever, Isabella.
It wouldn't be an episode of Phineas and Ferb without Perry. And outside of a montage to Phineas, we are also given montages of Agent P's greatest moments as well. Firstly, we get to see his creative entrances. Then later, Doofenshmirtz recalls all the different traps he's used to stop Agent P from thwarting him immediately. Essentially, this whole episode is a tribute to the past adventures of Phineas and Agent P. Talk about the greatest summer ever. Episode 21, My Fair Goalie, sees Ferb's extended family visiting from the UK. They question whether or not he's still got any of that old Englishman left in him. The cousins challenge Ferb and his friends to a classic game of football, but Phineas kicks things up a notch by challenging them to football using Football X7 rules. But what is Football X7? Essentially, these are a set of rules based around football that are meant to make it more challenging, more entertaining, and more dangerous. The game is played in a massive gyroscopic gravity well stadium that allows for three-dimensional play in 0 Gs. Unfortunately, the mind behind the game was never able to get the construction just right, so the game never came to fruition. But with Phineas and Ferb on the case, I'm sure it'll be ready in like an hour. See? Told ya. And as far as the game goes, each side plays the absolute best X7 football that they know how. And by the end, there are no winners. Only a game tied 4-4, and a group of kids that had a great day, just as Phineas had hoped.
That man's name is a palindrome.
Look away, Johnny. Look away.
Next, we have the episode Tri-Stone Area. For this episode and the next few, we see potential historical doppelgangers of Phineas and Ferb. This time, we get to see a day in the life of Finnabunk and Gurg, the Stone Age counterparts to Phineas and Ferb. Beyond this, however, we get what is perhaps the most meta episode in the show's history, as the creators jump in every once in a while and explain what's happening. Of course, there have to be counterparts to all the other characters as well. This includes Agent P, who still goes through the same old routine with Stone Age Doofenshmirtz. Doofengung wishes to live a bit more like his brother, and to achieve that, he will use his stickinator to rile up mammoths to drive his brother away from his luxurious tree. Meanwhile, the boys and their friends have finished their next big idea, the wheel. Hey, we're in the Stone Age. This is huge for everyone involved. Beyond that, however, Finnabunk and Gurg take it a step further and create the very first car. Cantalk, or Stone Age Candace, does her best to bust her brothers, but ultimately fails thanks to the mammoths destroying Finnabunk and Gurg's creation. Some things never change, even 27,000 years in the past.
I guess we should wait until tomorrow before we tell them about our new language.
In this time-warping episode called Doof Dynasty, we are taken back to feudal China. In this timeline, Isabella is a princess to the throne of China and wishes only to meet with the other kids. However, the nefarious Doofus-Khan is on the loose and wreaking havoc. Doofus-Khan has captured Princess Isabella, and the only one who can save her is the mystical Master Perry. Unfortunately, he has secluded himself to the highest peak of the unclimbable mountain of unclimbableness. Phineas overhears Regent Monogram's plight and decides that they will be the ones to find Master Perry. Phineas, Ferb, and friends make it to the bottom of the unclimbable mountain. Using their creative ingenuity, find various ways to make it to the top. Reaching Master Perry, Master Perry refuses to fight, but sends the boys through an intense training montage so that they, themselves, might fight Doofus-Khan.
Where are they? You know I can't see anything, right?
At Doofus-Khan's castle, the boys make a successful rescue attempt, but Doofus-Khan makes a mad dash for Princess Isabella's castle in a giant dragon. Here, the kids fight the dragon with a massive terracotta warrior robot. Now, there's a phrase you'd never thought you'd hear. Anyway, the two massive monsters fight it out, and eventually the kids come out on top. In the end, Princess Isabella is safe.
Compliments of Regent Monogram. I hate these things.
The episode titled Excaliferb is the third and most epic time-bending adventure. The Lady of the Puddle, i.e. Vanessa, gives Phineas and Ferb their quest to retrieve the fabled Excaliferb, a sword destined to stop the evil sorcerer Maleficschmerz. Pixie Isabella joins them to assist in their journey and gives a rundown of what they must do. Bear with me for a second because their quest is a long one. Firstly, they must cross the river of uncertainty by way of the bridge of comprehension. Then, they have to brave the swamp of spit-poor attitudes and enter the cave of 10,000 monsters. Here, they will find the sword Excaliferb. Back at Maleficent's evil tower, he explains his plan to take over the Tri-Kingdom area through the use of meat minions. Meat minions? Yeah, meat minions. Maleficent gives life to blocks of canned meat, and when they absorb water and grow, he believes they will be the key to his domination. Phineas and Ferb have employed the aid of Buffavilis, the Windlord, aka Buford, and Balgitalis, aka Baljeet, and their quest can truly begin in earnest. And with their powers combined, they trek their way past each obstacle with little difficulty, obtaining Excaliferb. Unfortunately, the fabled sword breaks right before the big battle.
For it is the instrument of your demise.
Luckily though, the 10,000 monsters seem to be on Ferb side, and a massive battle ensues between them and the meat minions, as well as Candace, who is morphed into a grotesque amalgamation of monstrous proportions.
Mom, and what is this stuff?
By the end, Phineas and Ferb stand victorious, and they return to their village applauded as heroes, and they all live happily ever after. In the following two-part epic, Where's Perry?, the Flynn Fletchers take a family vacation to Africa, and sadly, O.W.C.A. business keeps Perry home and away from those he loves most. Doofenshmirtz is up to his usual antics, and this time around it seems as though it's more important than anything he's done in the past. The ultimate evilinator. With this device, Doofenshmirtz can beam someone to turn them to the side of evil. And who would be the best candidate for such a device? None other than Major Monogram. Unfortunately, the beam misses Monogram and hits Carl instead. The Flynn Fletchers have arrived at camp in Africa and begin enjoying their safari adventure. While carting around the savannah, their guide Iggy points out the Uncharted Gorge, a location that is deemed too treacherous for navigation. The only way to get into the area would be with an extremely unconventional vehicle. And who are the experts of unconventional? None other than Phineas and Ferb. The boys and their friends create a machine based on the movements of different African animals that they can use to navigate the unchartable gorge. Unfortunately, once they get there, Buford breaks one of the levers and the kids fall down the gorge. Now, while all that was going down in Africa, the fallout of shooting Carl with the ultimate evilinator proves a lot more serious than anyone would have realized. Doofenshmirtz arrives at the not-so-secret HQ.
I'm good.
Good and evil, wink wink.
Why are you winking?
And is immediately imprisoned. Carl then goes on to sing about his newfound evilness with evil for extra credit. Agent P soon arrives on scene and locks Carl out of the O.W.C.A. mainframe. In a panic, Doofenshmirtz fires off every inator he has, blasting Agent P away to somewhere unknown. Where's Perry? Well, we soon find out in the next part. The second part of Where's Perry episode picks up directly from the previous one. Agent P is nowhere to be found, and Carl needs him to unlock the O.W.C.A. mainframe. After some investigative work, Carl surmises that the only inator that could have hit Agent P was the Go-Home-inator. So Carl, as well as the Flynn Fletcher family, robots, head to the Flynn Fletcher household. Meanwhile, Phineas Ferb and friends are precariously hanging above the unchartable gorge. After successfully getting his friends to the bottom, Phineas reveals he swears he saw Perry down below. This kicks off an enduring search for Perry.
I know it doesn't make any sense, but he was right here.
Who they fear is in danger. They overcome falling down a waterfall and falling down a massive ravine, all to try and get to Perry. Carl's search culminates in a standoff alongside a cliff face. After some time, Major Monogram arrives with Doofenshmirtz and his Regoodinator. Major Monogram proves a capable fighter and fends off numerous robots to get Doof the parts he needs. Once the device is completed, Doof shoots it, and Carl returns to his good-natured self. Carl and Monogram clean up the mess, and Agent P is allowed to return to his family. But that poses the question, why did the Go-Hominator send Perry to Africa? Because that's where his family is, the people he loves more than anything in the world. In episode 62, This Is Your Backstory, Doofenshmirtz relives every one of his ever-insane backstories to fuel his Backstory-inator, a device that harnesses the tragic memories of one's past and converts it into power. In all reality, this episode is a way for the show to relive one of the best running gags it has. So let's go over a few that we missed. In regards to Doof's social life in Drusselstein, he was very often the target of bullying. One of these bullies was someone by the name of Boris, who would constantly kick sand in young Heinz's face. Doofenshmirtz also told the story of how he came to America in the first place. It was all one big trick by his parents to get him to leave. They disguised the side of a ship to be a storefront, and right when Heinz walked in, he was on board heading to America. Finally, one of the more important backstories to mention was the time Heinz Doofenshmirtz went on a date with Linda Flynn. I know, mic drop. At some point in the 90s, Heinz and Linda went on a date to a drive-in movie.
that figures. We only had the one date, but it was eventful.
The date didn't go well, but one specific conversation he had with Linda was about their dreams and aspirations. Linda wanted to be a pop star, which she ended up doing with Lindana. Heinz wanted to take over the world, which Linda responded to by saying he should start small, maybe just the tri-state area. And it's at this moment that the Doofenshmirtz that we know and love, the I'm going to take over the entire tri-state area guy, really came to be. Thanks, Linda. We wouldn't have it any other way.
Doofy, 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 Doofenshmirtz!
As Season 3 winds down to a close, let's take a peek at some of the other marvelous adventures of Phineas and Ferb. In Episode 7, Phineas, Ferb, and friends make a trip to the moon to test whether or not cow milk harvested in a low-gravity environment produces better ice cream. Episode 20 saw the boys build a city-sized version of their favorite childhood board game. Meep makes a grand return in Episode 42 and takes the gang on a grand adventure to save the universe again. Episode 51 continues with the space theme as Phineas and Ferb create their own flying saucer to solve the mystery of the Danville crop circles. And finally, Episode 58 sees the boys take over the airwaves with their very own TV shows and commercials. Season 4 kicks off with For Your Ice Only. When we join the boys, they have already completed their daily attraction, an ice rink in their backyard. Man, they work fast. Candace is set to bust her brothers, but before she can, their father, Lawrence, has actually already seen the rink, and he approves. In fact, Lawrence is so excited about the ice rink and the game of hockey, he has arranged for the kids to play an exhibition game after the second period at the local hockey game. Seemingly, this is an extreme take on hockey, with a post-apocalyptic twist. Fire, monsters, and destroyed ice cities abound. Naturally, Candace does what she can to bust her brothers, but Doofenshmirtz's abominable-inator creates an abominable Zamboni before Linda can see the carnage. The next episode, Mission Marvel, is one of many crossover events, this time with Marvel Comics. In this epic event, Doofenshmirtz drains the powers of iconic Marvel superheroes after his power draininator misfires and hits them out in New York. The heroes, wanting their powers back, head to Danville to enlist the help of Phineas and Ferb, while the villains head there to seek out Doofenshmirtz.
Ooh, shotgun! You do not fit in the shotgun position!
Phineas and Ferb successfully create a machine that can temporarily replicate the powers the heroes lost. Only, there was a mix-up during the sequence that resulted in everyone receiving the wrong power.
But without the suit, there's not much there.
I am feeling entrepreneurial.
Meanwhile, the villains are wreaking havoc at the Googleplex Mall. The heroes, as well as Phineas and Ferb in their beak suit, arrive at the mall. However, without their own powers, the heroes don't know how to fight properly, just as the heroes are set to be vaporized.
The gentleman on the big screen will be addressing you, while I use this old TV.
Superhero Agent P shows up and pulls everyone from their certain doom. Back at Doofenshmirtz Evil Incorporated, Heinz has finished rebuilding the power draininator. The villains, severely annoyed by his general goofiness, cage Doofenshmirtz as well as Agent P. With everything going their way, the villains muster at City Hall with the modified power draininator that will destroy the whole of the tri-state area. Just when all hope seems lost, Hulk Jeet jumps on the scene, as does the Beak and superhero Agent P. And from above, Doofenshmirtz fires waffles from one of his pastinators. While the superheroes use some creative measures to stop the villains, Candace and Isabella head back up to the space station from the beginning of the episode. The villains eventually gain the upper hand and place the power core back in their machine. But moments later, the space station falls from orbit and lands directly on top of them. The powers that were drained from them were being stored on the station, so once it hits Earth, the heroes are blasted back to their usual selves, and they are able to save the tri-state area thanks to the kids' help. This episode, titled Phineas and Ferb Save Summer, does exactly as it says on the tin. Phineas and Ferb Save Summer.
Oh, never lick a tree below the dog line.
Doofenshmirtz, in all his wisdom, created the shifts the Earth's position further away from the sun inator, which, as I'm sure you can guess, shifts the Earth's position further away from the sun. He does this to lower the power of the sun's rays so he doesn't get a sunburn. But of course, it has many unforeseen consequences. Something like, I don't know, completely changing the way that seasons work on Earth. After moving the Earth, the tri-state area shifts away from a warm summer into a brisk fall. After a while, it gets so cold, it's almost like a normal winter's day. In the middle of summer, to remedy their situation and get the Earth back to its normal orbit, Phineas and Ferb create a rocket to attach to the top of Mount Danville. Of course, one rocket won't work, so they've enlisted the help of other kids from around the world to strap rockets to the tops of mountains. Things don't go according to plan immediately. After some creative ingenuity and rare help from Candace, the rockets successfully shift the Earth back into its proper orbit, saving summer.
Nice going, Candace. Hey, where'd the command center go?
Probably the same place the last one went.
Episode 47, Act Your Age, gives us a glimpse of what Phineas and Ferb's teenage life would be like. The opening scene shows a much older Phineas and Ferb debating about which college they will be attending once summer ends. An older Baljeet and Buford arrive on scene and give us their future plans. But the most important thing they mention is the crush that Isabella had on Phineas over the course of their lives. Meanwhile, the O.W.C.A. has had a change of leadership. Major Monogram finally retired, and the chain of leadership brought command up to Commander Carl. Along the same lines, Doofenshmirtz has given up evil altogether, but Agent P, as always, is still assigned to Doof. Nowadays, however, instead of the usual song and dance, Doofenshmirtz and Perry just go bowling.
Do we have chopped liver? What do you think this place is? Chopped that doesn't really work.
The Fireside Girls, as well, have stuck together through their teenage years. Baljeet and Ginger seem to have hit it off, but they always wondered why Isabella and Phineas never did. That gives them their grand idea for what to do before everyone leaves for college. They're gonna get Isabella and Phineas to finally recognize what could have been, but it seems their help isn't even necessary. Phineas has finally realized that after all these years, he and Isabella were meant for each other. The two finally catch each other before Isabella leaves for Tri-State State, and they finally acknowledge the feelings they have for one another. Phineas finally finds the answer to his college dilemma and decides to go with Isabella to Tri-State State.
Oh, huh.
Hey, what's wrong? Oh, shoot, I'm sorry. Wrong letter.
The two seal the relationship with a kiss, and Swampy Marsh closes the episode by crying along with the rest of us.
It's just a cartoon. I'll just...
Why?
Well, this episode is called The Last Day of Summer, and you know what that means. It's the end of Phineas and Ferb's adventures. Don't worry though, the boys have promised to make the absolute best of it. For Candace, however, this is the last opportunity she has to bust her brothers. Phineas and Ferb create the most epic contraption they can to commemorate their adventures over the course of their vacation, and naturally, it manages to disappear before Candace is able to get their mom to see it. Typical Phineas and Ferb shenanigans. But it doesn't end there. Following her final failure, Candace heads over to Vanessa's place to return a DVD she borrowed. While there, she runs into Doofenshmirtz concocting one of his usual plans.
Have you seen my nemesis? He was just here a second ago. He's about yay high and...
She's intrigued by one device, the Do-Over-Anator, a device that completely resets the day to the beginning. A time loop then ensues as she resets the day over and over, even without anyone initiating the Do-Over-Anator. We've seen Phineas and Ferb mess with the space-time continuum before, but this time it's more serious than ever. As the loop continues, rips and tears in space-time pull entire objects into a void realm. These objects that are pulled are completely forgotten about by everyone on the surface world. It gets worse. Not only have people forgotten about spoons and oranges.
I'm sure it's going to be all right, dear, but who are Phineas and Ferb?
They've forgotten about Phineas and Ferb themselves. To stop the constant time loops, Candace employs the help of Baljeet, Isabella, and Buford. Baljeet acknowledges the strange reading in the space-time continuum and realizes something actually is wrong. In their attempt to save Phineas and Ferb, they throw a life preserver into one of the voids, but are inadvertently sucked in. Not all is lost though, because if we learned anything about Phineas and Ferb, it's that they can do just about anything, especially when the whole gang's together. In the void, the kids use all the different components that have been forgotten about on the surface to create a catapult that launches them back through one of the rifts. It's a close call, and with the repeating days getting shorter and shorter, the kids have an ever-decreasing window of opportunity. In just the nick of time, Candace throws a spoon at the Do-Over-Anator's self-destruct button, and the space-time continuum is re-established. And to finally end the last day of summer, the kids all gather beneath the iconic tree in the backyard to reminisce all their past adventures. With the story of Phineas and Ferb coming to a close, let's take one last look at some of the other wild adventures we missed in Season 4. Episode 13 saw the boys relaxing in a massive ball of unformed water. In Episode 24, the kids recreate the Trojan War after being inspired by the Iliad. The boys create their own version of steam-powered machines in Episode 29, and Episode 40 saw Phineas and Ferb have another major crossover event with the Star Wars universe. And with that, our coverage of Phineas and Ferb comes to a close. We hope you enjoyed it, and don't forget to make the upcoming summer as epic as possible. Have an awesome day. We'll see you next time.